you can go and learn the theory of it, and you'll do some practical courses in classes, but where you earn your stripes is through repetition and experience. It's not word until you work a line, you're sitting in a galley, and you've got sous chefs and you've got your chef there yelling at you, and you've got, a busy service period, you sit there and you're in the middle of it. That's where you learn how to sort of get around the industry, how to get around that role. And it's the same thing at yachting. You can read about it as much as you want, but it's not until you put in a position where shit hits the fan that sort of separates, the boys from the men, so to speak.
Welcome to the show, guys. This is Chris, your host. You are on the Montclair podcast. And today we have a great guest. We have Lord Luke Hammond. So Luke has been a captain on board super yachts for about 20 years, up until recently when he decided to step aside the industry, I want to say, because he hasn't really left the industry. He's now living in Florida and is helping businesses within the super yacht industry and the maritime industry in general to basically help business owners to run a better business and prepare for their exit. So this is a little bit different, and I really enjoy this episode. Luke has a great approach to self-development and achieving goals in general. So let's get into the episode with Lord Luke Hammond. Welcome on the show. Today we have a special guest. Today we have Lord Luke Hammond. Luke, how are you?
I'm great, brother. Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate that. You take an hour and a half out of your day. It's always a great pleasure to have people like you on board. So, Luke, tell me, where are you today? Are you in Florida?
I would love to say sunny Florida, but it's absolutely bucketing down right now. But nonetheless, still Florida.
I think it's the global forecast for today. Mallorca is the same. Today it's been pouring down rain. It's actually a little bit chilly, which is nice. Early September. Normally we're still sweating around here, but it's all good today. It's nice and chilly.
It's like for Florida, this is not typically the wet time, but it's humid and it's a great day if you're a duck. I can't look at it.
All right. So Luke, tell me, should I first of all, I got to get this out of the way. Why Lord? How did you become a Lord?
That's the $1 million question that I let everybody speculate over.
All right.
But it's that I have known it's, when it comes to the number of Lukes that are out there, it's a great way to stand out from the crowd. So whether or not someone's heard about me, they've definitely heard the Lord Luke thing, whether or not they think it's interesting, weird, or just like downright outrageous. It works. It's a conversation.
So it is. So you're peacocking?
No.
All right, so we'll leave it. So should I call you Luke, or should I call you Lord?
You can call me whatever you want. I'm easy, brother.
I'll call you Luke.
Whatever works. Luke's fine.
Luke. All right, Luke. So tell me, you spent 20 plus years on yachts. How did you start, and why did you start?
Oh, the fun question. I found out about yachting from a newspaper article when I was living in Colorado. And I think it doesn't matter where you grow up, but as an Australian specifically, when you live on an island that's as small as Australia, that's so far away from everything, small island.
Yeah.
All you want to do is just try and travel. You want to get out of the country. Yeah. You want to experience things. You want to have great stories. And having seen that was kind of like a gateway to something that was another part of the world, or another part of life, another part of me that I thought, oh, wow, this is absolutely amazing. And fast forward a little bit, I told a friend of mine about it. He got in, and then it took a few years, and I kept trying to find a way to get in. But he turned around, and he was back one evening, and he's talking about this crazy story of ATV bikes on this island in the middle of the Mediterranean called Corsica. I didn't even know. No idea where this place was. And it was just the additional motivation I needed. So it just so happens that by chance a conversation with somebody else. I got invited to go work in Greece. So I got flown out there and then segued into yachting in a roundabout way around that, starting kind of out of South Florida and Greece. And it's completely random,
Well,
but that was the focus.
yeah, that was your entry into the industry. But just to circle back, what were you doing in Colorado at the time?
I was attempting to be a ski bum. I really wanted to do a
And you
ski
failed.
season. So the
Do
ski
you
season
mean that
just
you
happened
got
to
a
be one of
job?
the worst in record.
Yeah.
I unfortunately got a job in rentals. So there's been, majority of my career has been very humbling. I was running for one of the managers. I can't claim all of it, but I was one of the managers at one of the largest nightclubs in Sydney just before I left, which was awesome. Loads and loads of fun. But for me, I was just trying to find something when it comes to yachting specifically. My entire life up to that point was just try and find something that would entertain me, that I felt motivated to do, that I enjoyed and paid the bills. That was the trickiest part.
Yeah. So you started in Greece as a deckhand, and how long did it take you to get the the key of the yacht to become the captain?
Way too long. I think it was probably about 10 years.
Yeah.
Before I was.
Do you think it's too long?
I had a license before that, but it took me about 10 years before I was insured. And that's I think from the yachting standpoint, if you're looking at getting in, yes, you could probably go and get insured a little bit sooner, maybe. But when it comes to getting your licenses and yachting specifically, it's all about insurance. License is handy, and you do need it from an insurance company standpoint. They won't sign you on unless you can prove your job. And that's the battle.
Okay.
For most people.
So you need to get your sea miles, and you need to get your time on board before anyone would insure you. Because from what I understand, you could get a job pretty fast with the license,
yes.
But there's the insurance that will stop you.
Predominantly, it still takes you a while to get the licenses. But like you've already, it's the same thing like being in the kitchen. You can go and learn the theory of it, and you'll do some practical courses and classes, but where you earn your stripes is through repetition and experience. It's not until you work a line where you're sitting in a galley, and you've got sous chefs and you've got your chef there yelling at you, and you've got, a busy service period. You sit there and you're in the middle of it. That's where you learn how to sort of get around the industry, how to get around that role. And it's the same thing in yachting. You can read about it as much as you want, but it's not until you put in a position where shit hits the fan that sort of separates, the boys from the men, so to speak. And that from an insurance standpoint, their aim is to mitigate loss. So yes, you've got a license. It means absolutely nothing. They want to prove that you know how not to hit something and sink the vessel or kill anybody in the process.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part.
I understand. Yeah.
Whilst having
so yes, of course. And that's very important when you have guests on, or when you have many crew, that you can still be a nice guy and run the vessel to the highest standard. So 10 years as a captain, how many vessels did you work on? You mentioned working on Bella, right? That was the last one.
One of the last ones was, one of the last full-time roles was Bella, which was a 45-meter fed ship. Great boat, great build. I've worked on yachts like Scat, which was a big lesson. Amadeus, which was a custom boat to like 72 meters. Trinity's, Heeson. There's a bunch. I think I lost count for the number. It's not that many, but after a while, you do kind of have to see them in succession.
Yeah.
Everybody starts with their first boat, and then they go off. They think that.
Yeah. So anything you've learned over the past the next 20 years on boats that you wish you could have known from the start?
I think for me personally, I found that most people come into yachting for one or two reasons. One, and this applies to me, there is a story behind this one. People come because they've got out a relationship, or they're looking for some version of trajectory in life. They'd be looking to find purpose or something to that effect. And making money and traveling the world is great. And I loved it. It sold a number of different things for me. But what I wish I'd done more was focus on what it is that I wanted. And it's not that I didn't love yachting. It's not that I didn't love the industry. It's just that at a certain point in time, kind of like a professional athlete, you know that you've got a shelf life. You know you're not going to be doing it forever. So unless you can sit there and spend, even if it's like 10 minutes a day to try and focus on like your version of Ikigai, which is ultimately finding your purpose with what you want to do and what makes you happy and what you make money out of. I think if I'd spent more time on working on that, it would have made the process a lot easier versus just
when did you start thinking about your exit? Because that's basically, you're talking about exit strategy, and it's always a topic that I found very interesting because many people think of the way to get into the yachting industry, but they don't, like you mentioned, they don't think of what comes next and what they can do. And for you, when did you start thinking about your exit strategy?
Probably when I found out I was having kids. Your priorities
I can relate
change.
to that. Look, this is why I'm here today. My daughter was 3.5, and I was like, look, I love my job. I love the money I'm making, but there's more important things in life for me. And the time I am spent away from my family was not worth the money I was getting. So this is where I was, this is how I looked at it.
I think the hardest part with the industry is when you get in, you don't know, most people don't know of anything. And it doesn't matter whether you talk about exit strategy now, it's hindsight's 2020. You wish, like, I had financial advisors that told me I should do X, Y, Z. And did I do it? Didn't I? Then parts that you'll heed. But I think at the end of the day, more than anything else, I think that you're starting out, just get yourself in a position of learning. If you're learning and you're taking information in and you're growing yourself as a person, then you're doing everything that you should be doing. The outcome will still be the outcome.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my take on it.
And you're talking about learning. Do you feel, because now you've kind of moved away, or not away, but you've kind of like moved a step aside from the industry. What did you learn that you're using today? What's the one or two things that you picked up along the way that you think are really useful today?
I think if you look at yachting as a small business, regardless of what position you hold, you're going into it as a manager or as a business owner. That's the only way. You need to look at what your relatable skills are. And the hardest part with yachting is that because it's so niche orientated to, as per your job, everybody's told, stay in your lane, stay in your role. There's not a lot of crossover between interior and deck. Same thing with engineering and the galley, except for, you feel one and the other guys fix your stuff when you break it. But I think if you can look at it with an idea of this is where I'm at and these are my transferable skills, or this is where I want to be, what can I learn in the process, whilst doing everything you can in the job that you're in. That's the bit that was the hardest thing, is figuring out what the transferable skills are outside of yachting.
Did you realize now that you've acquired some skills, or you still thinking, what did I learn, but how can I use my skills that I've learned on boats?
Yes. That's because for every single person, it's going to be different because of every boat and every program, everything. Whilst, they say there's a million ways to skin a cat. It's the same thing with the boat. Between the style of the boat, the type of boat program, the captain, the owners, the HODs, there's always so many variables. So what you specifically learn is going to be unique to you, that you have to be the one that figures out, if I'm here and I need to get to this point, what are the skills I need in order to do that part? And that's not, or when you grow up you get into yachting and you're cleaning toilets, or you're a chamois technician, or you're doing mise en place. You're not thinking about an exit strategy, and you're not thinking about what skills I need to get to that certain point. And that's from a learning part. When you start implementing some version of self-development yourself, those opportunities of learning or realizing that you need to pick up certain skills are going to become more apparent. And
Yeah.
it's just like, but
Yeah.
again, it's not a conversation, or it's not something that most people are thinking about. For most people, it's just like, how do I get a job? How do I
Yeah.
get into the
I agree. I
mysterious
agree.
industry?
Do you think it's hard to get into yachting?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of hurdles for people to get into. And I think most people that are silly enough and crazy enough to get into yachting are normally in a position where financially it's a massive stretch to make it happen. Um, and you've got geographical limitations to where you are. Might have bumped into one or two kids or seen something on social media and you think, oh, this is so cool. This is what I want to do. And that's where they leave it. The dream dies then and there. But I think for yachting, I'd wanted to do it for years. I think it took me about 7 years before I managed to get 90,000, about 7 years. I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it real bad.
Yeah. No, but it's good. It's good because you got it at the end, and you mentioned something on a quick question that I was asking you before the recording, which you mentioned that you have to be committed, you have to be obsessed about things if you really want to achieve them. This is what you're talking about, right? This was the 7 years that
100%.
you. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing. Like it doesn't, this is the one piece of yachting that I got, the best part that I took out of yachting, was that if you don't leave yachting inspired to go be great on your own, then you miss the point of yachting. It's an opportunity to travel. It's an opportunity to make money, but it's an opportunity to be inspired by the people around you that are doing amazing things. Because yachting is so much, no problems, only solutions, right? Regardless of which department you're in. There's no such thing as typically there's no. It's like, let me think about it, I'll make something happen. And so for the guys that wanted to get into yachting, more so than anything else, when you realize how much it's in the public sphere, public eye, there's going to be a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of competition for these roles. What am I going to do specifically that's going to let me stand out from the rest of these kids that want to come in and take the job? And there's always going to be work, that the boats themselves are moving targets. They're never in one spot. So you have to not only be where the boats are, not only do you have to be better than everybody else, you have to be seriously fucking committed to being the best of what you can be in order to go and get that job. And once you get in and once you see what's on the other side of it, yes, it's a shitload of hard work, but the payoff is experiences that I don't think anybody in this world ever gets to experience, even the owners. I still think to this day that from a crew standpoint, we probably had better experiences and way more fun than they had.
Yeah.
In a pot that
I agree. Yes. Yeah. Of course. No, but I agree. Because the owners only see really a snapshot of what it is to be, spending 2 weeks in Mexico or in Greece or in anywhere in the world. When the crew, getting there takes some days or weeks of travel, crossing, getting there before the guests arrive takes a lot of prep, and you gotta go discover around to find what you need if there's something is missing, and then you spend the time with the boss, and usually you spend a few days after they left, and this is like the whole experience is incredible. I agree with that. This is a good point of view.
But I also think, and it's part from the social media standpoint, everybody looks at yachting from a crewing standpoint as like it's one long vacation. And it's definitely the furthest thing from the truth. But I think if you're the type of personality that likes change, that likes adventure, that likes to do things a little bit differently, it's one of those industries that scratches that itch. And I am 150 million%. I'm a stone that doesn't gather a lot of moss. I like change. I like variation. I like things moving around. But I also love the side of the industry where you actually do get to help people. You give them an amazing experience. And I still get goosebumps thinking about it. Just seeing how happy people can be after a great experience on a trip all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go back into running the boat as the captain. Do you feel, because you mentioned that you were running one of the largest club in your city at the time back in Australia? Any similarities in running a large club with many staff and running a large vessel or a vessel that has multiple crew?
The one thing specific from both industries are hospitality based. So both industries their core business is people. So you learn through mistake, through repetition, how it is to manage people and how to manage people efficiently from a captain's stand. And everybody's got their good stories about captains. So some captains have got a God complex, some captains are lazy, some captains sleep, some captains are downright absolutely. It's a mixed bag. But it's like anything. If you're going to be in a position where you're looking after people, you're trying to run a business and you want people to stick around, especially, with charter boats where it is, it's based predominantly on the crew and how they interact with guests and how well they perform and do their job. If you don't have a well-run, happy, safe atmosphere, people pick up on it straight away. There's no hiding, contention between crew. So the similarity between both of them is that with yachting, you can't hide. You're building teams and you're building crews based around personalities. Does everybody click together? Yes, it's not a family, but if I'm getting pissed off with someone, I need to be able to go take a breather, come back and not want to knock their head off. Or you don't want people that are, two separate personality types that are so far from each other, they can't communicate. It's going to bring up some sort of negativity in the business. So with the bartending and the hotel side of it, it's, they're there for a minute and then they're gone. So long as they're happy and they do their job, they're great. But with the boat, you need to hire for personality and the job is secondary to it. Yes, they need to do the job, but they need to fit in. And that's, for me, was the biggest marker for any business. Like if you can sit there and say, my crew retention's great, it's 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it ends up being, then you knew you hit the mark.
Yeah. Do you feel like owners are looking at that and in terms of what captain they're going to hire? If you can, if you get good retention toward the crew, or is it just a personality based and just if you click with them, then that's all they need?
I think the temperature for that changes depending on who's around. Any person or majority of the people that I've dealt with, they want to keep an atmosphere where it's familiar faces all the time. And to do that is very, very difficult because people will leave. They're not tied to a boat, they're not tied to a job. Try and keep people around. But there's a lot of people after a certain period of time just hire for the salary. They don't hire for personality. So if you'll take a job for X dollars, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of the way it's going.
Do you think salaries should be higher than what they are today compared to what they were, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Do you feel like do you think like they have changed or they have been stagnant, or?
Salaries haven't changed since I was in the industry. But I do think that there's a lot of people in positions that are holding onto the purse strings or telling people that this is what people should be paid. And I don't think it's representative.
Who are these people?
It's the entire industry. From management to family offices to brokerages to crew agents. The rhetoric is still the same. The reason it's staying, the reason nothing's changed is because there's so many people that have come into the industry. People are willing to take a job for nothing. Well, not for nothing, then they're willing to take the job to get a job. And that doesn't help the industry.
Yeah.
There's some owners that are amazing, but then there's the more issues that we have in yachting, the more it's going to pertain to the quality and the caliber of crew that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that.
it doesn't like it.
And
But the argument can go both ways. They don't have to pay top dollar because someone's going to go take the job for X number of dollars. But anybody that has the experience and has the time and effort and builds great teams and has positive ROI, then they should be paid, a good CEO amount or a good something to keep that sort of going. But it's not, the value isn't seen there. And for a lot of people, they're not in yachting long enough to realize the ramifications of not paying.
Do you feel it's because yachting is an industry that, except for producing experiences, they are not producing profit?
Yes.
Or revenue?
They're also, from an owner's standpoint, they're only using it X number of days a year. So then if the conversation is always about money, then there's no way to have that to move the numbers when it comes to salary. But if it's objective based, then the conversation isn't about money, it's about experience. And that's unfortunately where the conversations have gone. So if we take the conversation, we say, based on my experience, you're going to be using the boat X number of weeks, which is going to be great for you, but we need to allocate time for maintenance, for travel, for weather, for these types of other things. But in order to do that, then you have to do these other things. And that comes down to experience. But then you get some people that are just, essentially you become a glorified bus driver.
I was asking about the crew salary, but I suppose there is another part of it, which is what you mentioned, which is the budget, the yearly maintenance budget. And that I suppose as a captain, you have to fight or have discussions, and sometimes hard discussion with the owners on how and what should be spent. Do you feel like this is also stagnant?
Not really. Yes and no. It's always going to be a topic of conversation. That it's an easier conversation to have when you relate a jet or an aeroplane to someone. Anybody that has a yacht is either chartering or owns or has fractional ownership and understands the concept on the maintenance periods for planes. The same rhetoric applies to yachts, but not to the same, it doesn't have the same dollar value, but it has timing, it has legal implications, but it has implications that if you don't meet certain criteria, then you drop out of class. If you don't have class, you can't get insured. If you don't have insurance, then you're limited to where you can travel. So there's conversations there, but because most of the money is, I see it as well as boring money. If I turned around to you and said, look, hey, I need $3 million and I'm going to go fix stuff that you're never going to see or look at. And yes, it's going to impact what you're doing, but really you're not going to feel it, that you have to have it. It's not something, people don't like giving up their money for stuff like that. But it's also not something that people are told from the outset.
So do you think they should all charter?
No.
Why?
I think that there's one.
And my question, the reason why I'm saying why is because obviously chartering a boat, you can offset the cost of running the boat and bring a little bit of cash in basically to maintain and to cover all these expenses. But you think no, they shouldn't all do that?
No, I think if you're willing to charter your boat, you're looking at it from a business standpoint, and you can do very well at it to cover costs and keeps the boat running. It keeps crews happy. You've always got a little bit of extra cash sitting there to help with maintenance and things like that. But yachting isn't really about the money. It's about the experience. So anybody that got in yachting got in for an emotional reason, not for a financial reason. And you can make it financial, but typically it's emotional. And that's the way it really should think. There's a dollar value associated with keeping the boat running. It's a number that kind of is typically known. It can move. And then you've got, there's maintenance periods and things like that, which you kind of forecast. But outside of that, for me, if I had one, I probably wouldn't charter. If I had the, like, if I needed to, I probably wouldn't charter, but there's other ways to keep crew happy, but the boats themselves need to move around. So if you're not using the boat much, it does need to move. But to turn around and you're not worried about the money, no, I wouldn't charter my boat.
What would you get? Would you get a sailing boat or a motor yacht?
I get a stinky. I'd probably have a couple.
Where would you have them? If you're gonna have a couple, where would you park them? Would you have one in the Med and one in Fiji or somewhere tropical, or
something around the Bahamas, and like a small shallow draft around the Bahamas, maybe a catamaran or something. They could do that in the Caribbean, and then I'd have something that would go globe, something that could get down to Patagonia and the Arctic and push some ice around. So my aim is just to do the Titanic thing on the bow.
Yeah. Come on, you've done it, right?
I think I have, probably.
I'm sure you've done it at least once.
More than likely. More than likely.
You just don't remember it. That was the good old
years.
All right, Luke. What do you do now? Because you've moved, like I said, one step aside from the industry, from the yachting industry. How do you spend your time now? What do you do?
So I've moved into, from a business consulting standpoint, helping businesses in the maritime space that are scale and exit. So there's a lot of business owners that we dealt with, vendors and contractors that have done an amazing job up to this point. And a typical conversation is they're kind of stuck, either tied and they want to get out. They feel that there's a portion of their business that they know that they can grow or expand on. And so they're the conversations I'm having now. And it's exciting because you can see people that are hungry, but then it's like anything. My favorite quote is, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. So when you're sitting there in the thick of it, you're kind of working on your business. You're in your business, not on it. And that's hard to, you know what you know. It's the same thing with yachting. No, you know what you know.
So what kind of, can you give us an example of someone you've helped or someone you're working with currently? I don't need the name or, the specifics, but just said, this is someone that was struggling and that wanted some help. You came into, into the picture, and what do you do with them? Or how do you work now then?
Well, I think it's really to start off with anybody, it's understanding their story and their motivations. And for most people, I think ultimately the business is quite simple. If they're sitting there and they have an issue with staffing, they have an issue with income, they have whatever it ends up being, typically there's something that they're doing really well. And there's one or two things that they just don't have their finger on the pulse with. So in previous conversations that come around and just like pick their focus, pick a current goal, pick a future goal, but more so getting them to realize what it is and what they want to do in their business. Because a lot of people are doing things that they don't, or they're too focused on something, or they're spending too many, 110, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours working on their business, and they don't have any time for themselves. Relationships fall apart, you name it, health. The list goes on as to the issues that they come up with, that it's more of a case of giving people hope that they can either stay with their business and grow it, and do it, obviously it's going to take work, but it's fairly simple, or just helping people get out of where they are. And it's, for a lot of people, they've spent years doing what they're doing, and you kind of get ingrained in that. And it's just being ready and open to the idea that I've got to change, or I've got to do something in order to move on. And that applies to everything. Is it
people that want to retire, or is it people that are just looking at, they want to do something else and they're looking for where's the succession because maybe the kids don't want to do it? Or
that's a big one. There's a lot of people that have got businesses they want to pass on and the kids don't want to borrow it because it looks like too much hard work, or it's not sexy.
Yeah,
which is kind of.
And we're talking about profitable business as well, right? We're not talking about a business that is struggling. Those are businesses that are making cash.
Ideally, businesses that are making cash. in some way, shape, or form. They're the ones that are easy to scale. The ones that are not, it's still a conversation that can be had with people. But if they've got in that position where it's going backwards, they need to be open to the idea that things like shit's got to change in order to be able to grow the business back. And they've got to be willing to put that time and effort in. So it depends on how far along it is. Anything's possible. That's the way, it's the yachting motto. No problems, only solutions.
Yeah. And are they willing to change, the people you've been working with so far?
To a degree, not always. There's parts of it that they accept and some things that they won't. But I think when it comes to business, that's part of it. It's a series of, wins and failures. You can accept the failure and you give it and go on to the next one. But it's like anything. If you don't try, you're not willing to, try something different, then you're failing already. You've always got to, stay out in front of everybody else. You got to be doing something a little bit different. And if it fails, great, hit it, go on to the next thing. But focus on what your core skill is and make that work.
Yeah. So you help them to scale and exit. Does that mean that you perhaps put them in touch with people from the yachting industry that are looking into buying a business as their way to exit the industry or to shift their activity?
It can be. There's a number of different ways, whether it's me personally taking the business over. Otherwise, there's a number of other people that are, it depends on the market or the segment that they're in and what it is. For me, my focus for business-wise is service and manufacturing because it's easy to relate to and it makes sense. And, especially ties with the boats and the captains and the brokerages, it's fairly consistent. But if it's a topic that I'm not well versed in, then I have a huge network of people that have experience in those sort of niches that will either work with me or put them in the mix for whatever the situation is.
Yeah. So have you taken over many businesses so far?
I've
yourself,
only
as becoming the owner and the director, or
I would like to say yes, but I'm in the throes of this is all fairly new, and the actual acquisition side has only really come about in the last few months.
Yeah.
But there's talks happening. There's things happening.
Like you said before, it's all about motivation and grit and, never giving up.
Oh, the motivation has to be there, and you have to find that there's some version of purpose. But I think when it comes to this portion of this next chapter for what I'm into, I love helping people. I love business. I love the market. I love the yachting industry. I love the idea of, seeing people succeed and make money and have fun in the process and, take a vacation and take some time off and put them in contact with other people that can do things. But, I was thinking about it before. It's like, you got to learn to fire yourself. If anybody's got to quit, it's you, not quit. You got to fire yourself and get yourself out of tasks that aren't serving you. Put someone in that's much better at it. And that's where this is. It's a
and we can't do it all. We can do it all, but we can't do it all well. That's the thing. And you have to realize what you're good at and just stick to what you can do the best. And like you said, just leave room for other people to help you out as well.
Well, everybody's got a seat at the table and everybody's moving around. So there's going to be timing for a lot of things. And for a lot of businesses, like any business that's done well, most of the guys that were smart enough got out of the way and let the people with more skill come in and just go and tweak it and improve the situation for them. And that's that's the rhetoric there.
And how do you stay motivated? What do you do to keep going? You as a person, as a father, as a entrepreneur, how do you keep going? What motivates you? Playing hockey
and snowboarding. No, I think that the motivation is it's an internal fire. And my wife says it. She's over there. She's not listening, but she'll tell you. I don't think like everybody else. But I had a fire in me that has not gone out in any way, shape, or form. And it's one of growth, and it's one of ambition and absolutely crazy lofty dreams. And I can't switch off. Like my brain's going 24/7, and it's annoying. But when you find people that are kind of like-minded and you hear the stories going, it's like, Luke, you've got to shut up. Yeah. Been pushing on that one. But
I think we can talk for a few hours if you want, because I've got one of those brains too. The brain doesn't turn off and just keep producing ideas and things that you can do or you can do better.
It's amazing, and that's what I loved about yachting. You know, when you
it's a superpower. Look,
it is a superpower. It's definitely a superpower. But I think when it comes to yachting, it ticks so many boxes for so long. When you get into it, you get inspired from the people around you, the boats themselves, the manufacturers, the things that people are able to achieve and do, the ideas, thoughts, the experiences, you name it, it's all there. It's just like, it's amazing. So that then you step off and then you've got different perspectives, different motivations, having family and things like that. It's just the next challenge. It's just yachting 2.0 for us anyways.
Absolutely. What would it take to get you back on board as a captain?
I would say short owners trips, or maybe the odd delivery that was going somewhere random or cruel. But I think it's also one of those industries where if you're current and you're doing it all the time, you're better suited to it. From an experience standpoint, I can sit back and say, hey, I can tell you all the mistakes I've made and the good things and the bad things. But it's like anything. If you're not doing it actively, it's hard to stay. It's hard to stay current.
You think?
I think so.
You think if you spend the next few years working on your current business and your current project, and in like 2-3 years you want to go back, you feel like you'll be less accurate or less capable?
I don't think I'd be less capable. I just think that there's nuances that happen that are subtle enough that after a period of time you're off the mark, and you'll be improved in other areas. But the captaincy, when you're on board and you're active with any of the programs, you're more aware of what's happening at that point in time because your finger's on the pulse. You know what's happening in the market. You know what's happening in certain regions. You know what's happening with the weather. You know what's happening with your crew. You know you have a pulse. When you step away for a number of years and you just see the rhetoric and perceptions from crew or perceptions from owners or new legal implications that you weren't privy to at the time, now all of a sudden, what is now, there's a big gap. And you can overcome it, whether or not you want to. It's a different story.
Let's go back to the yacht owners that you worked for. Is there anything you picked up from these guys and man and woman, these high power couples or individuals for some of them? Anything you picked up while working for them? Because they are some of the the most successful people on the planet. Let's be honest, they people that can afford to charter or to own a super yacht are very successful people. Anything you picked up along the way that you just any tactic, any ideas, any ways of doing things that you think will never leave you now?
Well, for sure. One, there's no such thing as work-life balance. You're always working, but you integrate, you live the life that you want to live. Some people do it better than others. Some people are terrible at it. That you are always working. You're always on. And second one would be your network is highly valuable. If you can't be somewhere that you have someone speaking on behalf of you, like a sponsor, there's no such thing as a bad idea, just one that wasn't executed properly. And more so, to a degree, anything's possible and you got to be trying. There were guys doing some stuff that you just wouldn't have expected. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the thing is, they tried all the time. They were never, there was not one person that was off. They were all still very, very active, and regardless of their age.
Yeah, I agree. And I can confirm.
You've got to be passionate. You've got to, if you don't believe, and I think from a business standpoint, more so than yachting, even with yachting, if you don't believe what you're doing, you won't get through the hard times. You're not motivated to be where you are, to go towards some version of a goal. You're going to take a couple on the chin. You're going to get thrown on your ass. You're going to get knocked down once or twice, but you're going to be able to get back up and play.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many good sound bites in this.
So many shorts, man. I'm already like picturing 10 shorts out of this episode.
This is fantastic.
I'll tag you.
Thanks, brother.
Look, one of your kids come to you tomorrow and tell you, Dad, I want to work on the boat. What do you say?
Hell yeah. I've never met one person that's like, no. And I have girls. I've never met one person that wished they all turned around and said the same thing. I wish I knew about yachting when I was younger, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
Like in with my girls, and they're looking at it from a different angle, but they want to do it. They want to travel. They want to experience. But I'm going to throw within a little lifeline of like, hey, you need to focus on enjoy the experience and do the best that you can, and absolutely kick ass and get the most out of it and give as much as you can, then realize that you're going to work on an exit strategy as well.
Yeah. And save your cash. That is the one thing that I wish someone has told me when I started.
I tried. I did try.
Yeah.
I actively did try to hold on to it, but I had one story where it's like, I tell everybody I did everything backwards. Absolutely everything. Found the girl, had the kids. No, had the house, and they got kids. We just did everything pass out. Like it was a crazy sequence. And financially, it's always been an uphill battle, but it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's your story, At least it's different.
Oh, it's different and it's fun, and we've made the most of it. The kids came and traveled with us down on the boat. One of my daughters did an Atlantic crossing at 18 months. I think she was 18. First swim was in Cabo. They've seen whales from the boat and dolphins and traveled all over the place. They did
amazing. You're shaping their future. Like they'll see the world in a different way than if they had, been growing up on a small island, like you called it, like you call Australia a small island. This is going to give them a different perspective.
They have a very, very different perspective. That part I can guarantee.
Yeah, but that's awesome. That's awesome, Luke. I'm very happy for you and happy for your family. Luke, last question before I let you go. You've got, an hour with someone, past or present. You can go anywhere in the world. Who do you choose and where do you go?
Ask you problem. To be honest, I don't think I've ever been asked that question. Not really anybody that comes to mind.
Anyone you admire, anyone like you really follow and you really believe their way of thinking is different, or could be, you wish you could just pick their brain for an hour?
It would be, it sounds kind of cliche that it's not really. There would be a couple of people then. Tony Robbins would be an interesting conversation from the standpoint of, like, I'm sure he's shared absolutely everything that he has to share. But I think with certain times, there's going to be insight that he can have that'll let me connect the dots. And another person, which is totally random, is Ryan Reynolds, the actor from Deadpool.
Yeah.
I think the way he's gone about and done things in his life, I think very different from mainstream. And I think he's being very smart with some of his decisions. So that'd be an interesting conversation as well.
Yeah. Awesome, Luke.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This was fun. We should do it again.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure. When? Tomorrow?
Sure. Why not? We'll pick a new topic.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
And then, thanks a lot.